So I used to play squash for India for about 7.5 years, and unfortunately had a really bad ligament tear. You were around just IIM grads, like, okay, what's this one-off piece doing over here? But then life comes full circle, because today for me to actually raise funds is actually how you storytell and sell. We do not care at what time you're at work, what days you want to work. I feel like a celebrated admin in the office. Fortunate enough to basically be invited to the World Economic Forum last year. Gold is a $1.4 trillion market in India. Only in India, private stash. Globally, it's $12 trillion.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Breaking Uneven podcast. We love to talk shop, uncover the beauty of failures, and play a few games. Today, we have with us the co-founder and CEO of Spare8, Ronit Harisingani. He completed his bachelor's from Jai Hind and then entered the world of finance by interning at EY, Centrum India, and Avendus, and then working as a senior executive at Centrum India as well. He was still in the finance world, but has his own company called Spare8. Have we missed anything noteworthy from your journey so far?
Absolutely not. I feel this is quite spot on. But yeah, thanks for the introduction, guys.
Perfect. And how are you doing today?
It's a fairly hectic day at early morning, but the weekend, looking forward to the weekend. That's all I can say right now. Yeah.
He says looking forward, but we're already on the weekend. It is a Saturday. So
Sure.
unfortunately, a Saturday is hectic.
Yeah.
But thank you for giving us your time.
Of course.
Cool. So let's start off with an icebreaker game. Quick little game to understand what you do a little more. So this is called the Twitter Pitch Challenge. So Twitter is known for its 280 character limit on each tweet, at least historically,
Right.
which makes it difficult to convey your thoughts sometimes. And the idea here is it takes about 20 seconds to speak to 80 characters. And that's the challenge that we transfer to
Yes,
you.
we tried.
Which is to explain to us Spare8 in 20 seconds. But you also need to use one emoji and one hashtag in your tweet.
Okay.
Got
Awesome.
it?
Yeah.
Cool. So she's got something to intimidate you, which is the timer. And whenever you're ready, your time starts now.
Okay, so at Spare8, we're trying to build an entire financial inclusion stack with an asset class that everyone's very comfortable with, which is gold. So hence, we let users lease on interest, invest, and save in gold, period. The emoji will be a rocket, and the hashtag will be Ab India Karega Invest.
It was 18 seconds, but I went a little over. But that's pretty good, yeah?
Thank God.
But yeah, perfect. And so before we get into Spare8, a little bit more about you and your background. You first interned at Centrum India and then went back as an full-time employee after you graduated. So what part of your interning experience was attractive enough for you to go back to them as a full-time employee?
Okay, so let me start by taking a step behind, right? So I used to play squash for India for about 7.5 years. Pretty much been at it for a very long time, and I feel most of the whole discipline piece of it has really kicked in from there. And even something like before undergrad, you work your entire life playing a sport, and you want to go to the US, you want to go to an Ivy League college, and unfortunately had a really bad ligament tear. So had to be in Jai Hind. And most of my friends, like literally half of them, are either in some of the best colleges in the world, is because Indians are really, really good at the sport. Like you can't compare swimming, table tennis. Like squash is the way. This is a growth hack. Like if you want your child to get into an Ivy League, you make them play squash if they're from India. Okay. So I was in Jai Hind. So probably 2015, probably the worst or the lowest point of my time. And that was Jai Hind for me, 2015 to 2018. Centrum was basically an internship where we used to just go to a lot of clients, trying, just selling them certain products. Figured this was, even though buy side of finance where most of my interest lied towards, so a lot of hedge funds, private equity, figured sell side was the real way to move up the ladder. So I took the full-time opportunity at Centrum Capital, Even though I was at Ernest Young Centrum of Vendors. Vendors was fun, but you were around just IIM grads, like, okay, what is this one-off piece doing over here, right? And I remember my internship at Avendus was 2017, I believe so, where I was just, the youngest. Everyone was like 28, 29, 30. And you're like, this is not going to work out right now. But at Centrum was the selling aspect, which also, we ended up going to UHNI clients, structuring certain products for them, selling them a lot of NCDs, ICDs. You start learning what these products do for you. Funny thing, right? The way actually we ended up starting up Spare Rate was me just being at one point pretty much going on Google, figuring out certain startups all over the country. And we stumbled upon a research paper called Raise Invest, which is a subsidiary of Acorns in the US, which is in Australia. And we were like, hey, why isn't something like this really built upon in India? Because looking at the payment sector really, blowing off, this is the best time to build over here. And at the same time, I was like, hey, Centrum was fun. But there were times I was just in the cabin sitting all day doing nothing. But then life comes full circles, because today for me to actually raise funds is actually how you story tell and sell. And where I've really learned selling was at Centrum. Even though I was pretty much bored at one point with that whole, stint. But that's when you realize, like, whatever you do in your past really leads to you building for the future. And yeah, that's how we, essentially got started.
Cool. So, like you said, it came full circle, and there's a lot that you learned at your stint there.
Yeah.
But what is one thing that you changed when you started Spare Rate in terms of like either employee culture or the way you've set up the business that is different to Centrum?
Okay, so Centrum was like a hardcore corporate kind of job.
Yeah.
So you had to be there by 9:15. And like 2 minutes late, they would just give like a dirty look, and I'm like, why? Like, I just parked my car. Like, what's the problem? Like, at Spare Rate, we have this one, way of looking at things where we do not care at what time you're at work,
Yeah.
what days you want to work. But today, if you can finish, your entire week's worth of work in like 2 days, who am I to come and taunt you and be like, why aren't you in office? Because you have already probably stepped up. So, because it's a flow, right? So you need to firstly create certain flows or processes. Like, that needs to be in place always. It could be probably as simple as, hey, get on a 9:30 or 10 a.m. stand-up call and a stand-down call. So like 15 minutes, the entire team comes all hands. It's a Slack huddle call. This is something I learned at Centrum, but that was just a very weird kind of WhatsApp call. You can just talk, you can put yourself on mute and all. This huddle is like, you have to keep your videos on. You essentially just speak about three things: what you did yesterday, what you're going to work on today, and what are you blocked on. So if you're blocked on something, the foreign person who's going to speak knows that, hey, there has to be a certain synergy in terms of him working with you and giving you certain time. Okay, so say we are what, 9 or 10 employees today. We just want these folks to tell me these three answers and move on. So it's literally 12 to 15 minutes. You drop off and you start working. There are folks in the company who essentially are a week ahead than engineers. Suppose a design team, right? So if you're suppose creating a front end design and we are trying to launch a new feature, XYZ person has probably done this feature plus the follow-on feature and is just working on improvising the previous ones.
Yep.
But your engineer who's actually trying to build it out and push it and do QA and all is still going to take 2.5 weeks. So this person is probably 4 weeks ahead already because of the follow-on features already designed and built out. So today, that's where the whole cultural aspect comes into play, because you can't just expect the person to come, the person who's already 2-3 weeks ahead of time, and be like, no, do something more. Because you already, like, that person has put in probably X number of more hours to build the follow-on features. It's not her or their fault or his fault that they're moving fast, right?
Yeah.
So that's how we look at work culture. Like, you want to work 3 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours, doesn't care. Like, my co-founder Shadl is probably trying to debug something today, but the whole concept of actually putting 14 hours a day or like 100-hour weeks was initially when you're building it up because of hiring processes, a lot of employees drop off until you really create a core team. So if you at least set times, like a certain time frame, say like the whole 9 to 5 or like 10 to 7 or whatever, then people will actually leave at that time. And if there's something to debug, they'll be like, hey, we'll do it tomorrow. But today I can call my backend engineer and be like, hey, at probably 11 p.m. and be like, I needed this one data point, I can't figure it out, can you help me with it? And he'll actually pull up his his MongoDB or whatever, his Mix panel data, and give it to me. I'm like, okay, this is what I appreciate. Okay, so don't fix timings. Even like if you're sick, let them rest it out. If they're burnt out, let them rest it out. Take 3 days off. But the effort is going to be 2x after they come on board, right? Or like again resume. So that's how it should always be built. Like Ashni Grove, I remember him releasing this once. I don't know if this should be the best example here, but he was like, employees used to chill with me for half an hour, thinking that hey, they are giving me time, or trying to show that hey, they are around me, should get a higher raise. But he's like, people who probably I've not seen for a week, but are in office just put in the effort, probably get a 50% hike. And the people who are trying to come and butter me up get barely 5% hikes. It's because you could have put in that effort just trying to figure something else out, right? So essentially, times don't matter, your hours don't matter.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I think that's also the difference in company culture between corporate and
also the number of times you end up taking a team out, right? Small team. It's not like you have to do a weekly thing, but once every month is something we just prefer doing. Like we have folks who probably never eaten sushi, and this is a fact. They do not know what Japanese food is. So like, hey, let's all go for this one meal. And that just gets them happy. Like, hey, like at Spare Rate, when we were there for X number of years, we got to explore this side of it also. And that's how you just do like very small things that go a very long way.
You're just like appreciating your employees, which should be a given, but many times like it's not.
And there's no reason to celebrate. It's just like, hey, we've launched these 3 features, we feel it's doing pretty well, let's just go out. If there's every time there's a milestone, then the number of times we end up going out would be like ridiculously high.
And there could be like you could hit 3 milestones in 2 months and party 3 times, and then suddenly realize for 4 months, there's nothing happening, and then you've just not gone out. I totally get what you mean. In fact, a lot of what you said is exactly the way our office works as well. So we've got flexible hours, which means that you can come and leave whenever you want. We ask you to be there for like at least 4 hours overlap with everyone, because we huddle a couple of times throughout the day. If there's something, I'd rather get up from my desk, walk over, ask you, come back, rather than having to get you on a call. But a 4-hour overlap is enough for that.
Right.
And other than that, we do this thing called Fun Fridays, which is notorious for never actually happening on a Friday. But that's where the team, like every month, someone new from the team needs to plan it out for the entire office. So it's like, whether it's going out or like generally we try to do some kind of like games at the office. So they come up with like creative games, make people play it. It could be something related to like a trivia about the company, or we've done like Bollywood dress up days and like a whole bunch of stuff. But like giving the team the ownership of that actually helps a lot, because then they know that if we want to like have fun, then we have to participate as much in it as does management, which I think is quite important, because it can become very top down, like almost like you're forcing them to have fun in a work environment.
Right. I mean, this also dates to the whole, like I exactly get what you're trying to say, but something I figured off lately is in the whole work from home thing. I don't want to debate on it, but it's more about like, again, my co-founder, I feel when he comes, like he's an early bird, he has a routine set. Sometimes it has to be broken because of the, if there's a bug in the middle of the night, you have to debug it, right? But for him, it's more like, hey, if like he comes to Matunga, to Khar, Bandra, because that's where our office is. It's not too far, but dude, when you're going back at like 7-8 p.m., you're pretty much dead. He's like, I'm wasting 2.5 hours of travel time going and coming cumulatively, whereas I could just sat at home and figure it out. And that's what he's been doing for the last month and a half. And I'm no one to complain, because the amount of work getting done, like I can get hold of him. I can have the team get hold of him. There's a lot of things that's being ticked off on a Jira board because he's just actually being in his own zone, right? So I feel that is a very important part of the cultural thing, where you just need to give them space and let them figure it out, because ultimately, if it's your core team, they will put their neck forward to get things built.
100%.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned two tools till now, right? You mentioned Slack and Jira. So what are the kind of tools you use to make the everyday fluidity better?
I would say firstly it's a process, and then we think of the tools. So for example, there's a process where it's, I mean, we don't do this very often, but it's more like a monthly thing, once a month thing, where you create, it's a x-axis, y-axis kind of thing, where you're like, hey, the number of hours it takes to the amount of effort is going to require to build that process, and also how important it is. So you mark it on
Yeah.
a scale, and whichever falls closest to the central line, you're like, hey, this is what we need to build. And everything that's dispersed around it, it's like, hey, this is important, but it's going to take way too much time. So let's figure something that's going to be built in the next 3 days and
Yeah.
move forward, and based on that we start using tools. Yeah, so as you said, one of the standard tools um, which we end up using is Jira. Slack is more about to make the stand up more more engaging. Jira is basically a place where you can assign people certain roles,
Yeah.
certain tasks, and you can see their progress. It shows your whole timeline, it shows your boards, your misses, your engineering sprints. It's a sprint habit kind of thing. And we just get on a call, open the Jira board. There are like 9 names, 10 names, 12 names, whatever. You click on individual people's names, you can see their progresses. And if it's like, okay, if it's to do, done, in progress, blocked, or QA, so you can just tag it and assign people and put everything on that document. So that's something we use really like quite often. Slack, I mean, there's nothing much to say there. Slack is
Yeah.
like, for the longest time, everyone was using Slack, and I'm like, no, I'm just going to WhatsApp you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why isn't anyone replying? Because everyone's just on Slack. But for me, like on my phone, it's WhatsApp. If I'm on my laptop, it's only Slacking, right? So it's just a communication tool. That's all I gotta say. And also to get someone on call ASAP, there's nothing better than Slack. You just send them a huddle request, and it plays like a really cute music, and like, oh shit, that person's gonna huddle me right now. So there's a term we use, it's called he's huddling me right now. So it's like, okay, we gotta get on this call. Yeah, and we use Miro board quite often. So
Yeah.
Miro
Okay,
board is
yeah.
basically, it's a
The
whiteboard but
whiteboarding
on
tool.
your laptop, and we just, when you want to create, and this is surprisingly used very heavily by the tech team. So when they're trying to create a feature and write the entire backend system for it, they create like this whole vertical long diagram. You just keep
Yeah.
scrolling, but it's very clear in terms of what goes next and what's supposed to be avoided. So yeah, these are a couple of tools we use.
Miro is a horribly versatile tool. Like it's so good. I used to, when I was working in London as a consultant data analyst. We used to use. I've used Miro for creating wireframes. I've used Miro for doing workshops with clients, for again tracking progress within the team. And yeah, it's just like you can literally do anything with it, and it's just so seamless. And then when you get into like the
But also
entire,
depends for, sorry to interrupt,
no
but it also
worries.
depends for like which part of the team. Like we might be using Mo Engage, like Web Engage, Mixed Panel, branch metrics, like those all the tech piece of it, right? But for the whole team, I feel what you said, like
Yeah.
these are tools I feel is like a must have,
Yeah.
right? It just makes your life simpler, no matter what field you're in, right? But, sorry, yeah, carry on.
No, so I was just saying, yeah, it's a very like you can literally do anything with it. Um, but so let's get into spare rate a little
Right.
more. And to do that, I think it would be good to start with how did you come up with the name? What does the name signify?
Okay, so initially we were more like, not were, we still are. We are a micro investment platform, right? Specifically focusing into gold. Um, we had initially started with the fun idea of spare change investing to gold. But that was more of a way to be like, hey, this is a fun thing, let's get onto the app. But that's not our core feature as of yet or till date. So, because the whole spare change thing, we wanted to initially name it like Spare It, but we're like, hey, because, it goes hand in hand with the term micro investment also. But I think so company was already called Spare It, and I'm like, hey, 8 is a lucky number. And we're like just it's very stupid. We were debating, I was with dad, and I'm like, hey, which app has the number 8? And it took him like 1 second, or like has any number in it. Sorry, any app that has any number in it. Like let it be. I was just in my head thinking of like zero dog, grow, blah blah, and I'm like, where's the number here, right? And he's like, there's box 8, there is 5 paisa, and I'm like, okay, I'm going with the number for sure. And it and 8, like it goes very hand in hand, and 8 is a very very lucky number. I'm not a person to believe in all of that stuff, but it's just been like
Why not?
since day one, right? So I was like, sure, like spare 8. And now if you see, when we actually did a whole branding exercise post the funding round, we figured it's quite fun. So if you see the current logo, there are these two uh, 10-cent coins backdated,
Yep.
like probably 1900s. So they like two coins stacked on top of each other that like look like an 8. So I was like, hey, the name I actually created since day one now makes sense with the logo. And it's like coins being stacked, which is like gold coins being stacked on top of each other. So resonates with the entire theme also, or our vision. So yeah, that's how we came up with the name.
Very cool. Very cool. I mean, just the entire to see how the journey went from like where it was and now how it is, and it still matches and everything. Yeah,
I mean,
it's
so
interesting.
we went with an agency. Like it's quite fun because then you work on instead of a campaign, you work on a branding exercise.
Yeah.
And Abhishek, the one of close friend, was guiding us through this process. And I'm like, what do you mean branding? Like, I like the logo, I'll keep it, right? Like, no, like you gotta figure, give them certain, like there's a whole document these guys shared with us,
Yep.
and we're like, why am I supposed to, it's such basic language, like, okay, I want something fun. And I'm like, how do you make something fun? Okay. And now when you actually see the whole booklet of Spare's branding exercise, you're like, holy smoke, this is exactly what I thought of.
Yeah.
And that document, what I filled with the entire team, has resonated with what they've really built out. I'm like, this goes really ahead in terms of when you're actually doing like a large, probably an IPL campaign or whatever, right? This is how it has to be positioned. And you start, as I said, as a founder, you keep learning something every new, like every 3 months, every quarter. This was the first point where I figured, like, hey, I didn't know any of this stuff, but now I can actually figure why this is such a crucial
Yeah.
point, or like how like jo dikhta hai wo bikhta hai, right? And this is how it's supposed to be done, right? So yeah, that was a very fun moment to play along with.
Yeah, so when I first actually saw Spare 8, I thought it had to do something with like the ball, like Spare 8 ball. Isn't it called that?
8-ball pool.
8-ball pool. Yeah.
Wow.
It was like
First time someone's saying this though. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's and like on this podcast, whenever like we go down the thought process behind a name, it's always been so interesting and random. So I was like,
Right.
oh, is it anything to do
Yeah,
with that?
yeah.
But it's cool that it was something completely different. But yeah, in terms of like learning something new every couple of months and like just through the process, what is one piece of advice that you would give yourself when you initially started Spare 8? Like if you were to start it all over again at this point.
Learn how to test things out before actually going to market. You're like, hey, we've created this whole platform, now go to market and then figure if someone's going to use this, right? Which is why we actually must have wasted just like 15 days or 30 days figuring that out. But that's a very wrong approach. And this whole ideation thing of speak to customers, or like, we have X number of users, they're liking it, just build for them, like whatever we like, we build for them. But it's a horrible approach, because every time someone actually gives you feedback, keep taking that. Even in the initial stages, like do your research. Like the market is so vast, every like third week or something there's some research paper about your sector. You need to be up to date, because if you skip numbers, and if you're presenting this to example to a fund, you end up just being like, okay, why didn't I know this? I've been in this for 2 years, right? But yeah, as a piece of advice, it's just like, know your shit. That's it. Because for me, I was like, hey, I know finance, I know trading, I know investments, I know this asset class, but I didn't know the T of tech. And initially, how I started building, I just figured this one agency, because I was a solo founder for the first 4 months until Shadul came on board, and I've known Shadul for like a really long time. So he was at UCSD, University of California, San Diego. And from he's basically graduated in computer science, moves like a techie, talks like a techie, really fun guy. Extremely smart for his age. Like has taught me how to set processes, and that goes really like he thinks 3 years down the line. Like if someone's gonna push an update today, and they'd be like, okay, version one, there will be bugs, and then you stare at the screen like a hawk. But that's a very wrong approach because it burns you out faster. You need to create test cases and then push out version one. Probably even if that takes 10 days longer. Actually, it mentally, doesn't stress you out.
Yeah.
And the number of bugs that are going to be recreated are going to be very few.
And your detection pattern becomes easier.
Absolutely. And that's something like he taught us since day one. Yeah, so back to the whole tech thing, right? So initially, just figure this random tech firm through Google. Say, okay, these guys are in Ahmedabad, pretty cheap. We were bootstrapped back then. Okay, I'm like, yeah, let's get started, dude. What we could have built in 2.5 months, these guys took 8.5 months, probably 9 months, and that's what I'm like.
No.
And I didn't know anything. Okay, there's a UI UX designer, there's a product designer, there's a back end, front end, QA, everything was there. I'm like, okay, this is solid. It's coming at a fair price. Go ahead with it. The initial app was decent, very decent, but that was just us beta testing it. Like we weren't live in the market by any means. And then Shadil came on board and he literally got a heart attack seeing the code base. He's like, what? I can't understand anything here. So we had to revamp the entire code base.
God.
So that's the whole figuring out part, right? Like you need to know your shit. So if you're trying to, don't build something and then be like, hey, I want to go to market and then figure it out. Like figure a thing out, get the right folks to build it because they need to stick with you for the long run.
Fair enough. And like it's important, right? Like to take a step behind and think about it in like the
absolutely
long term.
Yeah, like for example, we are going to get into we are an Amphi registered company. We were going to get into mutual funds, and this was literally like day zero. Like me as a solo founder, like no employee, and I'm like, yeah, like mutual fund does that. And figure like, okay, you need to figure the market out first before just being like, hey, this is a fun concept, blah blah blah. Because we essentially at Centrum knew this market exists as the whole micro investment platform. But then when I started deep diving into the gold market, it all made sense. Because we had certain mentors who've been in the industry for, like, I'll take their names later on, but they've made a dent in the fintech sector. And when they tell you certain things, take their advice.
Yeah.
Like, don't be like, oh yeah, I feel this guy doesn't understand behavior. Like you might be like, oh, I'm not going to do it, so like the other 500 people are not going to do it. That's a really wrong approach because this person has been through thick and thin, has really created, has pivoted, and has built, say, a $5 billion company today. So don't be like he doesn't know his stuff, right? So when someone gives you advice, at least consider it before moving forward. So that's another piece of advice for sure. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of what you've spoken about is this concept that's come up on the podcast many times. It's called the entrepreneur trap, which was introduced to us by a founder called James Lowe. And at its essence, the trap is that your own confirmation biases and like your own vision for what you want to build, don't let it become so strong that you don't end up like learning from the people around you, from your customers, etc. So
we'll get to that later. But yeah, I feel like exactly like, and when you're shipping a certain product or a feature, this is a complete app-based kind of advice. You essentially, if you get that piece of it wrong, you wasted 6 months of your time and your money and your capital and everything. So to actually push some, unless it's a very small effort, so hence back to the x-axis, where I keep on thinking the term, right? But essentially the whole effort piece of it, if it's going to take low effort and it's high priority, build it right now. But if you're going to waste your time and just keep on pivoting just to try making a buck of revenue, you're going to be like, okay, where's my money going then?
We used to call it the value complexity matrix at Deloitte.
It's called, yeah, sure. That's one.
There's many different names for it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You mentioned that you were a solo entrepreneur for 4 months. How was that experience?
Scary. Because you keep looking for validation. Like, you do not know what's happening because you feel like you lost control. when you have control, if that makes sense. Because
Yeah.
you're like, you can pick up the phone, scream at this person, be like, where's this taking me, right? But ultimately, that XYZ person is only going to take his sweet time and build it out. So that was like a lot of figuring out to do. But yeah, like, I mean, first thing I would do as a second time founder now would be get your team in place. While you're like, of course, you have the idea in place with solid research, with solid, not PMF, of course, but like, this can take you somewhere if you do this in a certain manner. Get someone, like, people underestimate how, like, as a moat, the most important thing is also hiring, and that's going to take a lot of time. Like, if you get a solid hire, and if that person leaves, you're again going to get into the whole process of hiring. So it's a continuous effort, right? But if you have someone who can truly, like, I feel like the Zepto guys, right? What they essentially did now after raising a bunch of funds, they literally got the Uber Eats head of Asia, I think so. I don't want to like say something wrong, but I think so. That's the term. And it's automated. These guys are just at it now by probably going out there and like branding themselves out.
Yeah.
But the whole operation is taken care by a guy who's built it for the last 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So that moat, your biggest moat is hiring.
Yeah.
Or the people who actually get on board.
Interesting. I think, I mean, it's also about, as a founder, initially, yes, you want to be in the thick of it, building it and everything. But eventually, you also want to be able to, kind of give people that ownership and reduce your responsibility.
Well said. But I feel, this whole term of CTO, CEO, co-founder, dude, initial stages of pre-seed, seed, even if you raise a bunch of money, the misconception a lot of founders have is like, oh, I'm going to like live my life like Elon Musk. It's a fact. Like, they'd be like, okay, speak to my founder's office role. I'm like, why do you have a founder's office role? Like, why can't I directly reach out to you? You're a team of 10 people. You feel shit at one point. It's not shit, it's the wrong word to use, but you feel like, okay, you need to do customer support, which is a good thing. It's not bad. You get to learn more about a product. You need to do admin work, paperwork, accounting work. Having a accounts team is very much underestimated. You need to have a solid accounts team, but you need to know your accounting. You need to go and get something like your stamp paper, something as stupid as that, right? Like, I feel like a celebrated admin in the office. Really, like, I'm trying to like help out the peon who's trying to figure some office supplies, to next thing trying to close a really large deal with someone, and Shardul is just sitting there and building the product because he's handling is like our entire most of our team consists of engineers, right? So I'm like, okay, I feel like a solo guy with just Christian and a couple of marketing folks here. I'm like, okay, like, what's gonna happen next? But I feel, for being the whole finance sector, for me to set that vision has to be very straight and has to be to the point. Because if you skip anything there, as I told you, lose 6 months of progress, right? And that people underestimate a lot. If you networking gets you places, and how. Like, you put yourself out there with someone who's already built something. It's like, okay, why is this guy with him? Is there an acquisition happening? That like talks start happening around you, and you're like, okay, your name, like your branding, also clearly helps the app grow to a certain extent, right?
No, for sure.
But yeah, that being said, people underestimate, or people have a misconception of how they like once they raise funds, how they should really be themselves out there, and that's a really horrible approach. Like, trying to automate everything. Like, okay, I don't want to do this. I just want to do 3 things out of 15 things. Other 10, 12 things are handled by my founder's office role, which is horrible, because that's a big red flag, and every investor sees that as a red flag. So yeah, just put in the hours, put in the effort, and
I think the ideal scenario is you should be able to offload tasks to your team enough at a level where you can think about how else to grow the company. Like, your focus should always be on the company.
100%.
It's not like you offload tasks and you're chilling on a beach or something. Yeah, I get what you mean.
Exactly. That's perfect. Like, yeah,
and I think people have also this obsession, like, when people say, right, like, oh yeah, I'll just speak to my founder's office role or my EA and stuff like that. I think it's just this obsession that people have to like
At that
grow to
point.
that, like create that
Yeah,
vibe
yeah.
that I've grown to this level
Yeah,
this quickly. Like
absolutely.
it's not needed.
It's not.
Like you
It
have
makes you
found
lazy. Like I do remember there's something as like GitHub's AI or something. I forgot their program or whatever it's called.
Nightmare AI.
No, even Microsoft has something similar.
Copilot.
Copilot.
Yes.
Right. So GitHub Copilot, right? Dushad's like, I don't want to use that. It's going to make their life easy. Okay. He's like, if I start using this, I'm not going to start coding.
Yeah.
And it's nothing. It's like $19 a month. It's nothing, right? And till date, he's like, I'm like, dude, you need to like move fast with this product. He's like, no. If I do that, like as I told you, he thinks 3 to 5 years down the line. And like when I see this, I'm like, holy shit, this guy makes a lot more sense now. Because if you give it to all your engineers, they're just going to sit and use that.
Yeah.
And they're going to think that you become a lazy coder, and that's something you never want from
Your
your team.
Oh,
biggest
100%.
nightmare.
Because it's like writing a
And a lot of people use Copilot. Like the biggest of companies do use it. And I mean, I'm not saying don't use it. You should. Like if you want to move like really, really fast, you essentially need some kind of AI assistant or some kind of help. But don't be dependent on that platform,
Yeah.
right? Because it ruins our thinking process.
even something as simple as Chat GPT. So even in our office, if someone wants to use it,
That's so.
I tell them, okay, you want to have a conversation with Chat GPT, go ahead, right? Like just kind of someone to bounce ideas off of, use them as that. But that final idea and the final work needs to be done by you. And
Reverse work it. So what we do is every month, 5th of every month, we send an investor update. A really detailed means like from SEO, organic numbers to uh, like tech misses, tech updates. What are you asking the investor for this month? Uh, Special thanks to someone, like very very detailed investor update, and that goes really long. Okay, we are like Shardul and me work on this. Initially we're like, hey, okay, chat GPT might just help us figure this out, but no, you write that entire investor update, you put in a prompt where you can be like, hey, Paul, like in a tone of Paul Graham, the one of the YC
yeah,
guys, give us his opinion, and then you edit it on that basis. But you need to sit for that 1 hour, write your entire
Yeah.
10-page update, put it on ChatGPT, give it a prompt so you get better insights.
Yeah.
Don't be dependent on the fact that you write my investor update and then I'll edit it from there. You need to reverse engineer that piece of it. And yeah, that's like it makes your life or the way you frame the document a little better, a little more professional maybe, but don't make that person or that assistant do all of it for you.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's
you
a
should use
tool,
it, but to
yeah,
a way where
yeah.
it makes your life a little better.
Where it benefits you as a person, because again, like y'all said, you become lazy, right? Like then after a point, there's only so many ideas that you can get out of
Next
like
thing is you're
ChatGPT.
asking GPT for ideas, which is
Yeah.
not how you crack the
Yeah.
market by
Yeah.
any means. Right? Yeah, absolutely.
And like I think, yeah, the idea of like, I don't know why it is that like founders want to feel that sense of privilege or I don't know what, where it's like above
Yeah.
the rest and like speak to my like
Yeah, and this and that.
wouldn't you want to be closer to like your customers or like your people around or your
Also
investors
depends on
or
what
whatever?
scale. Like if you have like 20 million users on a platform, there's limited number of customers you'll be speaking with. The only reason you'll have help is to actually like, for me right now, even settling daily accounts, right, or rather like fund transfers from gold purchases to augment or whatever, essentially on a daily basis I'm sitting doing that, which is it's very crucial to do so, but it's not something that can't be automated.
Yeah.
Right, it's not going to ruin company culture or be like, oh, I automated this big thing
Yeah.
of my or CEO's job. No, like this is actually accounting purely, right? So if you have an accounts team, they will handle this. So out of 15 things, one is taken off your list. So that's how you look at it. If you're building a marketing team, previously, or hiring, like Shardul and me are always going to be doing hiring, even if we are like a X valued company or how big we are. The last 10-minute call or the last half an hour call has to be like, if it's on the product side, probably the last half an hour will be done by me. If it's completely tech, a project will be given by Shardul. But that always has to be done, even if you're decathlon company, because ultimately if it flows down to like a 500-person team, that end person also should be like, I got to approach the founder, I got to converse with him or her, I got to understand his or her vision, and that's how I'm going to stick around now. Otherwise, if it's some person who's recently joined the company taking your interview as a final round, you're like, why?
Yeah.
Like, I want to speak to the person who's actually building this, and it's also like respecting the other person. So yeah, it really depends again which sector, which field. Yeah, so that's
Agreed. And also, like, if you are part of that call, you learn more about what the founder wants from this company, and like that helps an employee to also be like, okay, I connect with this, or I want, like, I share the same vision. Yeah.
Until it's a core team, I don't feel so everyone can resonate or connect
Yeah.
the way you just said it, right? Or like put out the vision
yeah.
the way it should be said.
100%.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's also important as a founder to kind of do it yourself and then hand it over, if at all. Like, for example, with accounting, if you've never done it yourself,
No
if you
one in the
don't,
company can, like, these flows how we've made. Like someone has, like, now of course we've gotten people to help us settle that as their one of their 50 tasks, and it's probably taken it off my box. But those 49 tasks, which was also in my head, has pretty much, I wouldn't say automate, but it makes a dent in terms of how you look at our financials, how you project things. I'm not a master when it comes to accounting. I know how, like, I know more than the basics, I would like to say, which is another very important trait. But ultimately, when you're actually projecting, you can't just go with random numbers, and that's why you anyways needed someone to do that.
You
So
need
might
the
as well give
expert.
them that additional task to which is a 10-minute thing, right? So that's how you look at automating
But at that
things.
point, you know exactly, you know the difficulties that person goes through because you've done it yourself. You know the
Absolutely.
skill they're bringing to the
Absolutely.
table, so you respect them more.
Like that's why you have a CTO. Like
Yeah.
for Shadil, if you hire someone new, he's gonna sit with that person for a week. It might not waste his time, but probably extend the timeline for the current feature he's working on.
Yeah.
But that 1 week is so crucial for the full year.
Yeah.
Because he's going to show him what exactly was the problem he faced, which that guy might take X number of hours or weeks more to figure out.
Yeah.
It's short-term effort for a long-term
Absolutely.
gain. Yeah.
Cool. Let's go to our next game. We're back to games. So this one's called Two Truths and a Lie. And basically, the idea here is you give us 3 statements, amongst which 2 of them are true and 1 of them is a lie. And then we have to guess which is the lie.
Okay.
And these statements can be anything about your personal journey, challenges, achievements, something to do with the company, entirely up to you.
Okay. Do you guys think I've had 5 meals in 4 days with the founder of PayTM? Met Tony Blair? Got a token or a gift from Peter Thiel after pitching him a certain idea on how to mobilize gold?
I think the second one is a lie. That's the one I'm going.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that you've met Tony Blair. That's a lie.
No.
That's a truth?
That's the truth?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. So then we can still try
You
one.
can still true, yeah. Which one?
Is it Vijay Shekhar Sharma or
I'm gonna
Peter
go
Thiel?
with the gift.
You think that's a lie?
Yeah.
I'll go with 5 meals in 4 days. Maybe it's 4 meals in 4 days. Who knows?
Smart. No, the third one's a lie.
Oh, okay. So
Nice.
5 meals in 4 days.
Yeah,
That's a lot of conversation.
Vijay.
Okay, so I was fortunate enough to basically be invited to the World Economic Forum last year, and even this, like in 2024 Jan again. It's nuts, like that. I mean, pretty much know about the WEF since probably 7th grade, right? If you do economics or just study business, you know about this place. So yeah, that was quite a lucky thing that happened, and that place has, like, India has a big presence there. So there's like a Maharashtra lounge, India lounge, Saudi lounge. We have big companies set, their branding systems over there. So yeah, connect with him over there. Pretty friendly. Went for a bunch of meals, and just like 3 of us, 4 of us, one-on-one, certain round tables. Yeah, so that happened.
Very cool.
Pretty cool, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah,
When you met Tony Blair.
and there also, yeah, over there
Ah.
Oh,
again.
is that itself? Nice.
I mean, that's so. If once you start like speaking about what Davos does to you, once you're there, you might feel like this guy's just speaking lies. Like, trust me, this is still toned down.
Oh no! I know.
Things I would
I've heard a lot
probably
of.
discuss off camera will be very different
I know.
in terms of
I've heard many stories
it,
from
open your
Davos.
eyes in terms of this world actually exists. Like what people speak about, they aren't lying.
Yeah, we're actually in the process of conceptualizing a similar property for India. Like, how do you take? Because like we have a lot of things that happen in India, like the ET summit, etc.
Right.
But none of them are even like not even 1% at the level of what what going to Davos does to you. Like, and I'm talking about the intangible like feeling you feel
So
when you leave from
I
there.
feel it's more about that. That's one way of putting it, but it's more about it's also the place, right? Like it's like this 3-4 kilometer stretch,
Yeah.
and these chalets are just there. It's an experience by itself. It's -14 degrees. You're just walking on ice, trying to go from one meeting to another, figuring stuff out, events. So much is happening over there. It's also, I'm telling you, it's the place. I feel the place matters more than
Yeah.
Yeah, fair.
just who you're going to invite, right? Like the people will be like, we don't want to come for this particular event, and you'll be like, dude, it's like probably the top 10 richest person who's sitting like with you here, and he's just randomly talking of food. And I'm like, bro, like, and some person doesn't know this guy is, and you're just laughing at the person, like, what's happening here? Right? You're just figuring like, what's this world? But you can't compare in terms of how the setup is, the kind of money that's spent there in those 5 days. We'll speak about it later on. I don't want to throw numbers.
Fair enough.
Fair. But yeah, so moving on to our next game. It's called Red Flags. We're gonna give you 3 situations, and in each of the situations, there are 2 grade points and 1 red flag. We've adapted these situations for Spirit and yourself, and then you have to choose which situation you would rather be in.
Cool.
So, situation 1, Spirit is reaching close to 10 million monthly active users. Spirit experienced rapid revenue growth, tripling its annual earnings within the next 2 years. But there has been increased employee burnout within Spirit. Situation 2, you have a compelling offer for acquisition. You have expanded to multiple different digital assets, but Spirit has not been able to raise another round of funding. Situation 3, Spirit has identified a significant international market for their product and is poised to capitalize on this opportunity. You now have a team of 50 people, but expanding internationally has brought complex regulatory hurdles.
Okay, definitely
So-
another third point. uh, I would definitely go with the first point any day.
Yeah.
The first situation, sorry, which is 10 million monthly active users, because that by itself puts you up on an international standard like no other.
Yeah.
Rapid revenue growth, tripling annual earnings, biggest green flag in this market for any company, not fintech, even more.
Even more.
Yeah, and that to B2C fintech means it's the top funnel.
Yeah.
Within the next, okay, that's interesting. See, employee burnout you can deal with.
Yeah.
Like deal with, you can't like pressure and be like,
Yeah.
take off, come back. No, but there are certain ways of going. Like I feel out of all of this would not hamper the company vision. Your name in the market. I mean, people would still want to be a part of you because they're like, hey, this company is going to be making money. Since that's point number 2. That's also very. So employee burnout is a very vast, a very broad term. Like if you talk about employee culture, that's okay. You like 10 think of situation one way differently. But if you're like just burnout, there are like go for a really long 2-week break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And literally that motive, like at Centrum, I remember, I don't like make this too long, but I remember if you did certain targets and you needed really hard to push for these targets, they would give like free trips to Dubai. I'm like, Central? Central is doing that. Wow. And literally, like, okay, you get M1 back then, like M1 MacBook Pro, and I'm like, dude, that's fun. Like, I would want to work for this for sure. And you use all the resources, contacts, push it out, and that works. Like, you're stressed out of your head. You're like, I cannot do this, but you just do it for that thing what you always dreamt of having. You just gotta figure out for every employer, every sector, where the employee is working, what's the thing they wanna do or dream of. Like, I know this one company, a very, very close friend runs it. It's another startup that's raised a bunch of funds. He essentially has employees who've never traveled within India also, who've never stayed at probably a 5-star property. Some like certain like these kind of things actually helps you not like the employee wants to stick around longer.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people in the world and a lot of employees who are happy to work harder to be rewarded accordingly. Like they have like, that like
Absolutely.
especially we as Indians, we've been like brought up as kind of like hustlers. We all have an insane amount of work energy and ethic. And like we've had this with a lot of people telling us at the office that like when we tell them, hey, like, it's been a tough week, why don't you take it easy next week? They're like, no, we're fine, like it's not been a tough week, and they just want to be rewarded accordingly, and that's easily good enough for them.
Yeah, like I feel the whole, like if you're example into the consultancy space, okay, not management consultancy, mainly strategic consultancy, the kind of perks you end up getting is you can't fathom it. And like, I just read some article a couple of days ago. The founder of Citadel, one of the largest, most successful hedge fund in the world, and I would love to meet this guy if I ever could, Ken Griffin. He just sponsored some 2,300 or 1,200 families within Citadel's like family employees and the entire family. Flew them all to Tokyo, to Disneyland for like 4 days.
Wow.
On his personal tab, like not on Citadel's tab. So that's where people go to that height to actually take care of the employees, and people understand like to counter that third point is very important.
Yeah.
And it's important. I think the discrepancy is when they are working hard but they're not rewarded enough. That's where like the burnout really matters.
Yeah.
So it's like balancing both of that to find like the method for this to like be solved or for it to work.
It's a mental thing. Like burnout is a mental thing. So as long as you're not like if you're being rewarded, you have the
and you
happy
need to
part
understand
of it.
like everyone is going to be burnt out. It's not like you'll work for 1 year and leave. No, you are going to burn out. So you have to have a strategy to figure. So yeah.
Cool. Let's go to our last section. This is the rapid fire. Self-explanatory, like quick, short phrased answers. So let's begin. How many all-nighters did you pull in your first year of Spare 8?
Countless, really countless. And also I'm somewhat like nocturnal, so pretty much if you ping me at 3 a.m. I'll be there.
So then the question should be how many early mornings?
Very like limited.
Cool. How many days of leave have you taken in the last year?
Okay, can't specifically give a number because for me when I travel, like say if I go to Bangalore, that's also like I'm going for an investor meet. I'll probably take a day off to just meet few friends. But it's a work meeting, which turns out to be like a like not vacation, sorry, but more like a day off.
A day off.
That's how we look at taking.
So it's kind of blended, but you found the balance and you're fine with it. Nice. What is the scrappiest thing that you have done to build your business?
Scrappiest thing. So we are trying to like test pivot, not pivot. We are trying to test this one feature out where we could essentially keep these QRs at Kiranas, and you could tip yourself. As a customer, you could go and tip yourself in gold. So actually convincing a Kirana to use a SaaS product or like put a QR without them knowing what is this tip and pay and gold. It's the hardest crash course you can ever do. Yeah, that's the scrappiest thing you must have done. Yeah.
Nice. Have you ever questioned whether it was worth it?
Every time. Very, very often. And you just gotta think of the larger picture. People fail to understand the term think big. Just think big, and you're pretty much taken care of. Yeah.
Awesome. What was your proudest moment with Spare 8?
I mean, raising funds is always a proud moment. Actually, as a first-time founder,
Yeah.
even though you come from a good family background, like that, like if I start speaking about how we end up raising funds, it makes me smile because I was like, okay, that was a real effort to put in.
Yeah.
But the proudest moment would definitely be like the features we are launching right now is something that no one's really done in the market. And being one of the first ones to create structures in the financial world is very, very intriguing. It's very interesting. It blows you like how at this stage you can only do that. But yeah.
Nice. Nice. What is the weirdest place from where you have worked?
I mean, I don't prefer working. Like, if I'm working, I'd rather be in a spot I'm very comfortable. So, weird place to be. I mean, if I'm traveling, like I'm just stuck somewhere in a mountain, man. Like, that's about it. I want to work there, but I think for somewhere in Davos only, like the bare minimum connection. You're just figuring out. There's a stand up again, but yeah, that's all I could say.
Fair enough. What was your biggest sacrifice to make Spare 8 possible?
My dream has always been to like not be in India, right? Now it's completely opposite after building this out, but not was never really impressed with how this could really move forward. So want to always go abroad, anywhere, settle there, work from there, either as of like get into venture capital or hedge funds, whatever. So like deep inside, I still do feel that piece of me wants some of it, but yeah, that I feel was a sacrifice initially.
Fair enough. What was an oh shit moment for you? Good or bad?
Good was when initially when digital gold, I mean, it's an unregulated product, but when SEBI told brokers that could not sell it, so like a Grow and PayTM, money could not sell digital gold. We were like, hey, we have a larger share to capture. We're like, holy shit, like this is why we can actually start building this out even better. So that was a aha moment.
Nice. Amazing. What was the one time you felt like you let Spare 8 down?
When there are burnouts, you essentially feel like you're not putting that kind of effort. Sometimes you end up going to office a little later where every employee of yours is just there and is waiting for you because there's something that's blocked for a really long time, or say a couple of days. And unless you resolve for it, the thing's not going to go ahead. So it could be like maybe sometimes being slow in terms of procuring stamp paper to actually get the hiring process going.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a bad moment, but it's like, yeah, those days were there.
Interesting. What, would you ever retire?
Jokingly, always told parents I want to retire at this like a very young age, and like they're like, we're gonna like get at you if you ever do that because you don't know, you don't understand, like there's so much to be built around or to explore. So I wouldn't say retire, but always have been for the investment, like for the like a part of the investment sector since really long. So exploring that sector is something I would always keep on doing. So even if I'm a solo person, like looking at different opportunities in the investment space is something that's going to be forever. Yeah.
Which hobby of yours did your work kill?
I was pretty active in terms of like playing sports. I haven't visited the gym in a while. And that's where I actually started learning from Shadil work-life balance, where you need to set a routine,
Yeah.
which I'm trying to work on.
Fair enough. Books or podcasts?
Podcasts.
iPads or notebooks?
Notebooks to write, iPads to read, like scroll through.
Nice. We do have a question which says morning person or night owl, but that's been answered. So I'll just move on to the next one, which is what's your favorite social media?
LinkedIn. Not because I use it often, but it's a piece of advice I give every person who's in college. You need to start building your LinkedIn presence, and
Yes.
that puts you leaps and bounds ahead, man. It's nuts.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, there needs to be some kind of digital presence, whether depending on your career path, it could be on Instagram, like might be more fruitful, or LinkedIn
yeah.
might be more fruitful. But it is, in today's day, it is important.
But
It's
I feel
not
if
like
you end up reaching out to someone who you always dreamt of being a part of with, actually also the sector, right? But LinkedIn does that for you.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, and then like obviously for creative people, Instagram DMs and stuff like that, like for reaching out.
Absolutely.
But yeah. So that concludes the rapid fire segment, but we're not like at the end of our conversation. There's one more thing left, which is we ask every guest to ask our next guest a question.
Right.
So we're just gonna play for you the question from our previous guest.
If you were to touch lives, uh, would you put a number to it? And if yes, whatever number it is, 100, few lakhs, how would you do it? What would you want to do that you can touch a number that you have in mind, so many lives in your lifetime?
So firstly, you just need to get started. Okay, that's always the path to, you know, if you dream of anything, just do it. Then you start figuring it out. But going to market is another ball game. But just start, right? For us, the number, because we are in B2C or like, I mean, directly retail, right? I'm just going to make a little longer answer here.
No,
So the reason to do gold is also, so at Centrum you're only going to like ultra HNI clients. The rich keep on making more money.
yeah,
And we're like, hey, like back in college, so I used to invest, dabble in a lot of trading, future options, made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, been through most of the ups and downs there. A lot of friends used to be like, hey, where do we get started from? So I feel a piece of me also wanting to do a whole auto investment kind of model was because everyone was like, okay, what do we do next? And people fail to understand that when you're truly creating for tier 2 India or for the larger segment, so correlating with spare rate, I would like the number would be bonkers, probably 500, 600 million if that number is there, which is 100% there.
the one who asked you the question, his number is 1 billion. So
1 million? Okay.
1 billion.
1 billion. Okay, for global numbers, sure. Just for India is what I'm talking about.
Fair,
500
fair.
million for sure. But the reason for it is also, as I said, so gold, right? You walk on the road, ask a random dude, what's an ETF? He'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? You ask him what is Sona, what's the response going to be?
Yeah.
They know it. So when you're truly creating something for tier 2 India, you have to get started with the asset class they're very comfortable with, hence gold. Now, when we try to create this whole platform of financial inclusion, something I've noticed at Centrum again, you pick up the phone, call a random person, try selling Centrum to them, and be like, hey, we want to meet you for investments. They'll cut the call. You pick up a phone and be like, hey, we are calling you to give you a loan. They'll be like, okay, tell me more. Because India, like deep credit penetration is there. It's very much needed, right? And something personally I've never resonated with because never been through. As a child, I've never really looked at, oh, we need a loan for this.
Yeah.
So it's either there or we figure a way out to get that, right? But if you start exploring, speaking to users, you're like, hey, so gold is a $1.4 trillion market in India. Only in India, private stash. Globally, it's $12 trillion. It's more than any asset class that really exists. Mobilizing that in India has been very bad yet. So people have launched, like the government has launched SGBs, blah, 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 but lock-in is 8 years. People have, we don't put that much like money aside for that long. So we recently came up with a product called gold leasing. We created APIs for a exchange where we essentially let you lease as little as 3,000 rupees or 0.5 grams of gold, and you earn up to 15 or 16% interest in your gold investment. So we lease that to jewelers where we've taking care of bank guarantees and corporate guarantees. So you are basically secured up to 105%. So you lease $3,000 and you make. So gold grows. People don't know this. Gold grows 11% year on year CAGR since last 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
Right. So just invest in gold. If you're getting started, why are you trying to dabble into options? Like you are going to lose money if as a first-time investor. And the larger market already holds gold in a physical format. So to mobilize that by leasing it is what we've tried to really create over here. And we know how to digitize this whole platform extremely well. Now the part is to master distribution, which we are building on, right? And why I feel this can change lives is because gold is the only asset class that you can bring the entire financial inclusion stack into one. So to give an example, suppose mutual funds you invest. You can collateralize that and take credit, but you cannot lease it, you cannot gift it, you cannot get physical delivery of it, right? In digital gold, you can, if you make a user save, you can invest as well as $1, okay, in digital gold. After you hit a certain threshold, you can ask for physical gold delivery in the form of any jewelry, any bars, any coins. So India wants physical gold, but they can't store it. So you avoid that, but when they need it, you can provide them for the same. You can lease your existing digital gold, make up to additional 5-6% interest, which is the 16% growth. You can collateralize that, give them credit, and there's a very 3,350 tons of gold has been given as gold loans, like basically collateralized and have Vitic has owned. And that number is huge. Like 70 tons of gold is 35,000 crores. So 3,350 tons, I don't know the numbers right now, but you can like fathom it, right? So as I said, from savings to investing to wealth creation to loan, collateralization, gifting gold, like I can type your name, I can type Anuj or Janvi, type your number, click $1,000 of gold, click send, you get the gold right now within seconds.
Yeah, let's test it out.
We can do it. We'll do that. We'll do that for sure. And like that's how versatile it is, or how like easy it is to use this platform. And because everyone knows this asset class, they are very comfortable to use it. So I feel to get to the point one, which is how do you touch or make a difference to lives, is basically getting them started with investments, right? And that has to be done with this asset class. It can't be with any other asset class because the onboarding process is very, very time consuming for any other asset class. Over here, it's under 30 seconds. You tap it Truecaller, it pulls out all the data. You just put your PIN code and your age. That's it, and you get started.
That's true. I tried it yesterday. It was 30 seconds.
Yeah. With others, it's like, do KYC. It's a 3.5 minute process. Dropout is very high. So, okay, it's very funny because we look at design as a way to actually target a user. Now, very interesting data point. You must have seen the share button on WhatsApp or any of the other platforms. It's like the paper sign.
Yeah.
Now you might assume everyone knows that paper sign. Like you will see a paper sign, you'll be like, okay, I'm going to share it with someone because I need to click that to share it, right? But when you're truly doing UX research for tier 2, tier 3 India, they did not know what the next button is. Forget share button. They did not know what the K of KYC is, right? They did not know, like, as I said, the paper sign is not the share button for them. It's a placement of where the share button is on the Facebook app, and they will resonate the same with, okay, that being similarly on this platform, because that's the largest social media platform used. So you need to start taking UX research insights from other large, apps after you figure this out. So when you're actually creating buttons on the app, it has to be done in a very subtle manner, which people don't think of. So that's the level of thinking you go into while building such a process. So hence, when you're touching lives, there's a lot that plays around. First thing is to start, and I feel this makes you a better person, right? Because such a diverse asset class, you can just, with this, you can go to a Tanishq and be like, or Carrot Lane and be like, okay, I want this gold right now. You have access to it. You're making money out of it, you're earning interest out of it, you're doing so much with it, right? And that you're not dependent on anything, but you're just automatically investing. You're going about your life. And at one point it's more like, okay, this was there and this is going to make me understand more as a step further. So if you eventually want to get into equity, then I'll do it. But I feel for the larger population to get started with, this is the best way to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's the end of our conversation. Ronit, thank you so much.
Thanks a ton for having me.
We're gonna link Spirit in the description, so if anyone wants to check it out, they can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
It was absolutely lovely having you on.